complained about what happened in Parliament today, or what didn't happen, I should say, that they used, that the Liberals were using the guy who has to speak every day. It's nice to see him in question period. MP Kevin Laramu, who speaks every day, almost all day in Parliament for the Liberals. He did a lot. It was an empty house for question period today. And what did the one guy say? When the cat's away, the mouse will play. I don't know what guy used to say that. Well, I don't know, but that is much. Oh, it's not question period. Ooh, let's take that down. I guess you guys want to see an image or something instead of just like a black screen. Hey, we'll do this. So they were gone. Pierre is in Windsor right now. So he went to Windsor, and he's going to go to Michigan. He's going Michigan, then I think Houston. He's not going to Washington, because, and his answer was perfect. It was golden. I was like, oh, I felt like Canadian. The flag waving in my mind when he said, it's government's job to negotiate with Parliament, not opposition's. And it was like, that's the system. That's how the system works. His job is to find fault and to find partners of the people who didn't win the election, right? The others. And that's what he's doing. He's doing his opposition job very well, in my opinion. Well, the plan is there. Will the follow-through be there? Will he have... See, the problem, the risk with a trip. A trip is great for politicians to make them look like a better, not a better, but like a bigger person. You go on a trip, you get treated different, and the way that they're being treated and the people around them somehow transgresses to the camera, and so it makes them look more, and it works. It works. Politicians, the best thing to do, it's one of the good things to do. There's a bunch of things they should do on these trips. I won't mention. You have to pay me, but these things work, and Pierre needs to do them anyway because he's been a very sheltered politician, right? So him being prime minister and waiting, this is good that he's going on trips. It just makes him look prime ministerial, right? Under the tutelage of Carney. In a way, he is under the tutelage of Carney, right? Because Carney is though he can stick a thorn when he feels like it. At being the opposition, and he will. But right now, it's actually, I think it's a good position for Canada as these negotiations where our parliamentarians are. Pierre, young and rising up and fighting to gain popularity is good. So hopefully this trip, the risk doesn't come with something like he eats something and he gets, like, this is how horrible the risk can be, because there's a lot of other journalists around, and it'll be small media, but those small media in the States, you know what I mean, they conglomerate up. So if that local guy catches, who's there doing the local Detroit news, catches like a slow motion mustard spill, like a big one, a major thing, that could ruin the whole trip. And it's small as that. Oh, I guess I lost everybody. That's the that's the risk of a trip. But usually people are forgiving of small things like that. It's like when you do things when the super duper thing, when he went a little bit too overboard with the dancing with two other women, Trudeau, it was not a good look. That was with dancing with two other like Indian dancer women. I don't know what, you know what I mean? What that was? No, maybe if he was doing it with his family, that picture would have flew. But him dancing with two women was not prime ministerial, especially he had his family. You know what I mean? It was more that the silliness of it, and it would have looked less silly if he was there beside his wife doing less silly moves. less eccentric moves, and you know what I mean, with a smile. And even you know what I mean, his family, though, because that was they made a lot of good hay. Well, they made a lot of good hay with that in the media. Pierre is speaking. And yeah, that's what happened. So I was like, what the hell? The house is so empty. And what it was, the bosses aren't there. The Liberals, the NDP got a couple questions in there even. The NDP got a couple. I was like, why the NDP get so? Yeah, because their boss was there. But the the Liberals and NDP, the Liberals, they sent on the guy who speaks like 8 hours a day. That poor guy, Kevin Laramu. I'm going to make a funny skit about what he has to do to get rid of his daily headache for yelling for 4 hours a day in Parliament. And so the bosses are away. There was less people in question period. It was freaking empty, like 20 to 50 people out of 343. It's amazing. Party whips weren't working. I don't know. I think if I was a conservative, because the conservatives are supposed to hold values of old things, things you did, right? They make sure Christmas is held with Santa Claus and Jesus. It don't matter that we don't practice this. You know what I mean? These things are what the conservatives are going to hold on to 100 years from now. Right? And Parliament is that. They should be the ones that are there every time saying, hey, where are our colleagues? Right? Especially, it's only 1 hour a day. I think that they should be able to switch seats. I don't know if they can, and let their staffers occupy seats, right? They can't ask questions, but they can act like an animal and scream at the other side, right? You know what I mean? Endure and do that other only for the hour, only for question period. Because it's a show, and it's a good show that leads to the real show. And the real show is committees and bills and debates, and that are 1/10 as exciting, unless you like the details. Like myself, I'm about the detail. I like the details. The details is what makes this country run or not run. And this is probably why I believe I'm seemed the most exasperated about this country for 20 years, as seeing which way it's going. When insiders, what do you want to call them, gangs, whatever, it seems all the way riddled through everything of a connect. The country has pulled the ladder at the same time when the wealthy class is also, so it's coming to the point where, like in say you go to a country down south, South America. We'll call it South America, right? Well, that country of South America. You go there, you have to pay the local gang. You got to pay the local politician gang. You got to pay your local, international syndicate gang, right? And then on top of that, other countries come in there and have their operations, and they can mess with you whenever they like. And all of these people, 4 people, lean on the worker, and that person has no recourse. That is the definition of a bananical republic. A guy told me, he showed me his house. He said he showed me his house. It was beautiful. Oh my God, he lived in a tropical place, warm country. It was. I thought it was. He was showing me pictures of a mall. It wasn't a mall. It was his home. He had gardens so big he had a mongoose to get the cobras, right? And he was coming to Canada. I'm like, why, man? Why would you leave that? You live literally in gardens. And he says, well, I have no recourse. The street behind me gets all the fixes because the local connected people get it. I just so happen to be built on the wrong street, and I have no recourse when they come and do things to me. My police can't do anything. He's like, he goes, I can come to Canada. My family, I don't have to worry about my this and that. He goes, those walls couldn't save me from a road that wouldn't be fixed because the government is corrupted by the gang. Like it was a local syndicate or whatever, right? And he's like, that's why I'm coming to Canada. And he moved into like a normal, nice house, very nice house, but left a mall to that, and the difference was safety. He's like, you know what? And it's worth it. And they're like, oh, my God. So to me, he told me, he gave me the biggest lesson, which I pass upon to no one who's here, it says, that what the value of a proper running government police machine, bureaucracy, a government bureaucracy is worth. And he says it's worth a mall-size home, right, with gated gardens and security, mongoose. He, of course, did none of the work, nor did any of his family, unless they chose to, right? All staffed, food, everything. Left that for a nice home. Some people would call it a mansion, but a nice home in an upper nice community in Canada, right? And nothing more than that. Like, that's all. He's the comparative. He was born in that country and stuff like that. But that's the difference. And I'm like, and he wouldn't go back. He's like, no, it's, And so this is why I am a staunch believer in the conservatism of the one thing is that they were believing in the law and order. And that law and order, whether I agree with those laws if cannabis legal, this and that, or not, is a pillar that is worth more than a mall-size home, living in a nice home, right? Living in literally a palace. The guy gave up palace for security, really security. And he's like, I'm talking about civil security to know that the trusted politician and the elected council will work on his road when it needs repairs, not fix the wealthy guy's road every week and his not get any repairs for 20 years. Like that is the big difference of corruption. And that's the reason why Argentina is a piece of and all around there. It's not just Argentina, it's the neighboring countries that are totally corrupted and they infiltrate Argentina. But South America is totally corrupt and not productive, and the people aren't wealthy. It all has to do with bureaucratic government and it working or not working. And it's just corrupted. And not strong enough, and it's outside forces and blah, blah, blah. Not all of the countries. When they're really small, there's not much they can do. But a country like Argentina in the 1800s was at equal footing to America. But due to a horrible, inefficient, bureaucratic, and a lot of those countries, gangs, Venezuela, Colombia, all these countries could be totally booming. Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Well, why isn't it like Saudi Arabia, right? Richer than Saudi Arabia, buying jets to put in storage. There's probably more Tomahawks in storage in Saudi Arabia than any other place in the world. Anyway, not Tomahawks, Tomcats. We got no comments anyway. I'm talking and talking and talking. I feel a little bit better about the situation because I realized why the parliamentarians weren't there today, and it has everything to do with them the bosses not being there. Right? All right, that's just human nature. That's not a big deal. And, well, here's Pierre.
Ici avec notre équipe conservatrice de Windsor, une équipe qui se bat constamment pour défendre les emplois dans le secteur automobile. Évidemment, les conservateurs ont gagné tous les sièges pour la première fois à Windsor à cause de cette belle équipe. Nous voulons que le Canada soit abordable chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous et maître chez nous. C'est pour ça que nous travaillons pour une économie qui est autosuffisante, en réduisant les taxes et les impôts, les déficits libéraux et en enlevant la bureaucratie pour nous permettre d'exporter nos ressources naturelles d'outre-mer. Et c'est pour ça que je m'en vais aux États-Unis, au Michigan, Texas et New York pour me battre pour nos travailleurs ici au Canada. Mais avant de commencer avec les substances, il faut reconnaître les 84 000 employés qui ont perdu leur emploi le mois dernier. On est très déçus de voir que ces familles n'ont pas de chèque de paie. Et mon message pour eux, c'est les consommateurs vont se battre pour vous. M. Carney a fait des grandes promesses électorales. Le premier, la meilleure économie dans le G7. Maintenant, on est la seule économie dans le G7 qui est en déclin, avec le deuxième pire taux de chômage parmi tous les pays du G7. Mais son propre, et c'est la pire, une réserve stratégique qui nous permettrait d'échanger chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous, representatives and other business interests north and that's why the Gill and Chris Lewis who are fighting every seat et nous travaillons ici. Thank you very much. Et maître chez nous et nous travaillons ici. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. It's an honor to be with the incredible conservative Windsor team. Of course, we won every seat in Windsor in the last election with great MPs like Kathy Borelli, Harb Gill, and Chris Lewis, who are fighting for our auto workers every day and in every way. And that's why the four of us are headed north to Detroit. I know that's counterintuitive.
You're right.
Going north to the United States in order to meet with auto industry executives, state senators and representatives, and other business interests to fight for tariff-free automobile trade across this river and across our border. We will be making the case that both Detroit and Windsor are stronger when we trade together. And Sunday, we will be back here in Windsor to make a proposal to renew and rebuild the auto pact with a plan that will allow both the United States and Canada to grow their domestic production and repatriate our industry to our country so that our people have paychecks and our national industrial base is stronger than ever. These are all things that Mark Carney promised a year ago, and he has not delivered. It was all an illusion. Let's look at Mr. Carney's real record after a year in office. He promised the strongest economy in the G7. He's given us the only shrinking economy in the G7. And we have the second highest unemployment in the G7. Today, we got the terrible news that 84,000 Canadians lost their jobs last month, a devastating jobs report, the result of in part of Mark Carney's liberal failures and continued job-killing liberal policies that have made our economy the weakest in the G7. We are saddened to see that Canada is in the weakest position after a year of Mark Carney, because it is true, we do have global problems, and we cannot discount or try to control what President Trump does. But all the countries are facing those tariffs. None of them have a shrinking economy like we do under Mark Carney here in Canada. He promised that he would give us affordable food, and a year later, food inflation has doubled. We have the highest food inflation in the G7. It can't be all blamed on global factors when all the other G7 countries are seeing their food prices rise at a slower rate. He promised he would double home building, and his own housing agency says that home building is dropping by 15%. He promised that he would move quickly to build projects, yet he's not yet given the green light to a single pipeline. His special projects office has not approved a project of any kind. And, of course, he's not removed a single anti-development liberal law or regulation. It is still effectively impossible to get a pipeline built, and it is illegal to ship oil off the northwest coast of BC. He promised to spend less, yet outside of COVID, Government spending is at 30-year highs, and the deficit is the biggest in history. Everything Mark Carney promised was a grand illusion, and your life is not getting better. Your life is more expensive, your country is more dangerous and more dependent than ever before. But the good news is we can turn it around. We can turn rhetoric into reality, and that's what Conservatives are proposing. We want to make this country affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home, so that we have unbreakable leverage abroad. We want to cut taxes on work, investment, home building, and energy. We want to pass a Canadian Sovereignty Act that will clear the way to build pipelines, mines, LNG plants, export terminals. That will ensure that we can serve our own market, we can power our own paychecks, and fuel our friends abroad. We want to build up a strategic energy and mineral reserve that can leverage even more strength in our negotiating south of the border. And we want to fight for tariff-free access to the automobile, steel, aluminum, and lumber markets. Using the leverage we build up, we will fight for this tariff-free access for all of our people. On Sunday, I'll be announcing a new auto pact proposal that will protect the jobs of our country. Let's be clear. Mark Carney's idea that he's going to replace the American market with China or other overseas markets for automobiles is an illusion. It is impossible. Almost all of our automobile exports go to the United States. There is no replacing that market. We need to regain access to the United States market with a plan that will be good for Canada and realistic on the other side of the river. And we have a plan that will allow both our countries to grow our production and repatriate our industry to this country. So, as always, we put our country first. We work every day in every way to make Canada stronger, safer, and more affordable at home so that we can have unbreakable leverage abroad. Thank you very much, and I now welcome your questions.
Thank you. We'll now take questions. Please identify yourself and your outlet. One question, one follow-up.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre. Taylor Campbell with the Windsor Star. How will your auto pact proposal benefit residents, auto workers, and the greater community in Windsor and Essex County?
Thank you. Very important question. In 2 days, I'll be back here to lay out the specifics. But effectively, what it does is it eliminates it would align our regulations with the U.S. It would take the GST off Canadian-made automobiles, and it would make a realistic proposal to eliminate tariffs for the sale of Canadian automobiles in the United States of America. And it will do this, I say it's realistic because it will do this in a way that will be advantageous to both Americans and Canadians. And that is why I believe we can get the Americans to accept this proposal.
I understand you're making a trip north of the border.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Have you already had any conversations with American counterparts in these sectors, and is there an appetite for what your proposal suggests?
Well, we have been speaking to American businesses and legislators. I have not given them the specific proposal yet because I want Canadians to hear it first. But we have carefully studied what the American auto industry is looking to achieve. And we have calibrated a plan that will allow us to repatriate and massively increase our auto production on this side of the border, while at the same time making it attractive to the United States on the other side of the border. And that is why we believe this is not only a realistic plan to rebuild our auto sector, it is literally the only hope of keeping our auto sector in Canada.
Hi, Emma Loop from CBC Windsor. Thank you for taking our question.
Sure.
You mentioned that you're meeting with representatives from Ford and GM. Can you explain who exactly from those companies you're meeting with, and is there a reason you're not meeting with anyone from Stellantis?
The Stellantis was merely a scheduling issue, but we are meeting with the other two, and we'll be meeting with their executives to talk about how we can grow the industry on both sides of the border. And then we will also be meeting with some legislators, 2 from Michigan and 1 from Ohio, who share our interests in the auto sector and in energy.
And my other question is about the new Gordie Howe Bridge. The Bridge Authority announced this week what the toll rates are going to be. They also gave a newish opening date. They previously said early this year. Now they're saying this spring. Are you satisfied with those toll rates? And do you have any sort of other reaction to that news?
Well, I think we have to ask the Liberal government why they're so far behind and so much over budget on completing this project. At the end of the day, this is another example of Liberal cost overruns and missed deadlines. This bridge should have been completed years ago. The government of Canada put out a press release saying that it would be done in 2020. Well, it's now 2026, and we're still waiting. So it's time for the Liberals to move from illusions to results, rhetoric to reality. This bridge was announced well over a decade ago. It's time to open the bridge and get the traffic flowing.
Hi, Maureen with Blackburn News. You said you're going to present this new auto pact. Can you tell me what your approach is to negotiations when the other side hasn't seemed to be very open to those negotiations?
Look, what we have to do is build up leverage. Nobody can control President Trump. Not me, not Mr. Carney, not anyone else. But what we can do is control what we do here on this side of the border. We have to build up our strength and leverage at home so that we have more leverage abroad. So, for example, I'm proposing we build up a strategic energy and mineral reserve and make that available to allies with whom we have favorable trade terms. I'm proposing that we massively increase our energy production, something that is extremely important to the United States, especially now with what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, and that would be able to reduce gas prices on the American side of the border. We are going to massively build up our military, and the amount that we spend of that purchasing U.S. weapon systems will be linked to the market access we get. My approach is to build up as much leverage as possible and then use that leverage to get what we want, which is tariff-free access for our autos, lumber, aluminum, steel, and other Canadian products. True.
There is a push here. You mentioned that it was a blue wave in this region last election. There's now a push here to get the next Conservative convention in Windsor. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, that's a great idea, eh? What do you think?
Please.
Okay, but I have to have the agreement of my Windsor MPs. What do you think?
All in favor.
Okay, the Windsor MPs are on side.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful here.
It is.
We love Windsor. It's a wonderful, you might just have convinced us. So I hope that the tourism department at City Hall gives you a royalty if we decide to come here.
Good morning, Rob Hindy from AM 800. The plan you're announcing on Sunday, did you talk to unions that represent auto workers? Are they a part of this process as well?
Yes, we've been in regular consultation with the unions that are fighting for the jobs. About 3 months ago now, I think it was, I met with Unifor in Oshawa. Our labor critic, Kyle Seaback, has been in regular contact with Unifor and also with the automakers themselves and their representatives. So we spent a lot of months and a lot of time calibrating this plan, and we hope that it will have support. I can't speak for Unifor. I don't know exactly what they'll say, but I think they should be supportive because this is not only the best hope, but the only hope. I just say this. Mark Carney has us on track now to lose the entire auto sector because he effectively has waved the white flag and conceded that he's not going to be able to get tariff-free access for our autos. Almost all our auto exports go to the United States of America. We need to get tariff-free access to that market on favorable terms in a new auto pack, and we're the only party that has a plan to do that.
So then after Sunday when you announce the plan, what are, I guess, the following steps after that to get things moving?
Well, I'm gonna share it with Mr. Carney and encourage him to steal my ideal, because I really don't care who gets the credit. I want to save the jobs of the amazing Canadian auto workers in Windsor, Oshawa, Brampton, and elsewhere across our great country. We need an auto sector. It is vital to our national security to have a manufacturing base, and I'm prepared to work with anybody from any party to save these jobs. All right.
Why not? How are you? Nice to see you again. Welcome to Windsor again.
Great to be back.
Just curious, how important was it for you to have, I know they're not your thugs and they won't be your security or anything, but just to have the MPs
Actually,
with you.
Harb is my security.
Is he, well,
Look
he
at
used
this
to be
guy.
a cop, right?
Look at
So
these
I get
pipes.
that.
He's a former cop.
I know.
How many years did you serve?
29 years.
29 years.
There you go.
So
So,
don't mess
no,
with them.
how important is it for you to have them with you in your cause going across the border today?
Well, very important. They know the file better than I do. They know the ins and outs of every single parts supplier, manufacturing facility. They can walk up and down the assembly lines and talk to people by name. So they know the real human impact of this industry. They know the technical background, and they will be at the table today with the big automakers fighting for every single Windsor and Canadian job. All right.
Thank you. This
See you
concludes
anymore?
today's event.
Okay.
Well, that is, excuse me, that is Pierre. So yeah, he's in Windsor. He's going to Detroit. He's got a good. Seems like a pretty good team with him. They're happy. They're eager. They're ready to sell for Canada. And it's possibility that that one reporter questioned the Conservatives into having a their annual meeting conference in Windsor. Just by asking, hey, is it going to be in Windsor, your conference? I heard a rumor, which was in my head, that I created, and he said, well, maybe we will. So, it was news to him, it sounded like, but it's an optimistic possibility, Windsor. Windsor, Detroit. If the auto deal doesn't go well, which I really have feelings that Canada, we're like a lot of countries, but Canada really isn't the worst culprit. We tried to be more fair, and we changed 8-10 years ago. We started to change our practices of predatory practices on the United States as a country. You know what I mean? We eliminated a lot of that, and we do things like in Stelco and here in Canada, it upgrades the fuel, and you can't do that in the States. They can't actually do it. Environmentalists and that they actually can't, so they can do it here. So that we got partnerships. There's a lot of that goes on, and we've found good niches, whereas other countries were just like, hey, let's just go for the free for all. Mexico more so was into that, though Mexico has been built up so much. At this point in time, Mexico's looking at demand. They need more people to go to Mexico now for the labor. They're having good problems, right? But obviously there's a major weighing down of because of their corruption of government and the amount of politicians that it's that's really slowing it down. But for the trade, no, Canada, we're like basically we are kind of like a state in a lot of ways, almost indistinguishable, but we are distinguishable in ways, eh? So yeah, very, very closely aligned. I think that he may have done the art of the deal. This is my assumption. I don't know. The art of the deal was shake up with everybody, make re-deals with everybody, and Canada, of course, is one of the everybody's. So I think that we got hit hard, but most likely Canada will, and we are actually have the best deal. Like 85% of our goods right now are not being tariffed by the tariffs, and I have a feeling they may want some things, but I don't think they're going to be disastrous. I personally don't believe Canada. My prediction: the Canadian deal under Carney even will be decent. Like, I don't think we're going to be excited, but we're going to be like, oh, I was worried for 6 months for that. I believe that. Just because of the partnership of Canada and the Canadian-American partnership is very, very good. And Golden Dome will be more on a ticket item spoken about, and Canada is a big part of it and a big contributor of it, of that $36 billion that Carney just mentioned yesterday. So it's, you know what I mean? We're there when it comes to Golden Dome. We're not just a partner. We're there as a partner, not just whatever you want to have it. So yeah, these things, you put them all together. We bicker with them them a little bit, but overall, when it comes to partnerships, two country partnerships, the Canadian-American partnership is the best partnership of two countries. Longest undefended borders. All kinds of great things. We aren't really predatory against American, more of a partner in a lot of things. We do things Americans can't do, and hey, I think it's good. So the worries and all this stuff is just political hay to get people all upset, in my opinion. Try to make some hay out of some stuff. This is the German Chancellor. He's in military mode. It's not God mode. It's military mode. It's got some military stuff all around him. Here, I'm gonna make the picture all designed for this screen here. Looks. There you go. Got his soldiers with them. I hope he speaks in English, but I'm sorry if he doesn't. I'll skip past it.
Sehr dankbar dafür, dass wir das tun konnten und gleich noch weiter fortsetzen werden, auch die Zusammenarbeit in der Energiepolitik. Wir haben dafür gestern einige Weichen gestellt, aber wir werden auch in Zukunft schauen, dass wir eine gemeinsame energiepolitische Strategie entwickeln. Wir brauchen innerhalb der Europäischen Union zusammen mit unseren Entwicklung von Aspektes, auch für den Stand ihrer Ausbildung.
And we all recognize that we hold very good.
All right, so yeah, the German Chancellor, he spoke. He didn't speak in English, so they're doing. Obviously, it's all about defense. Is this section of it? First was trade and all that stuff. Now we got defense. And Maris is a part of the conservative wing, what would be basically like our conservatives, but it's called like I forget the exact name. The Christian group. So it's like basically it's this very, very similar. And Merz, to give his backstory, it's under him and Merkel back in the day were both going to be the leaders of this party, right? And this is the predominant party that rules Germany. There's slow, incremental change, conservatism, nothing radical. They've been like this since the past horrors. So he was like an investor, banking type person, and she came from Eastern Germany and worked her way up. They both had two visions for the party, and it was like a vote kind of thing. And her vision was like the way Germany went, the oil, closer ties with Russia, and this and that. And his was radically different, defense and changing this and that. And she won. Very, very narrow win. And he got up respectfully, shook her hand and all that, and then stormed out. Respectfully stormed out. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything really, but you could tell he was upset and left politics. Didn't go to IC, didn't go to, just poof, gone from politics. And then after all of the policies that he disagreed with have shown to a lot of the policies, the mass immigration, the deals with Russia, the pipeline to Russia, all these things have turned to not be very well. He returns to save the party because he had that big argument before and wins. And he's leading. So he has a pretty decent polls. In Germany, they have a hard right party that's been rising as the manufacturing gets eroded through their deals with China. Right? It's Chinese cars are populating European streets, and German cars are less there. And so the manufacturing sector has been taking a hit. There's a harder right that's returned. Though under Merz, he's done a pretty good job of maintaining, moving in the right direction with a lot of things. Like he took him 2 months to build that LNG port state terminal station and a lot of things, major shifts and major changes fairly quick instead of the slower incremental changes as what Germany is used to. A bit of both. He's been playing a bit of both. Rapid things here and there. A huge spending in military, though, but I don't know exactly. I don't think it's the money. They're like, okay, here's the money, but I don't think they know what the heck they're going to buy yet. I personally believe that this next few months till the summer, next fall, we'll probably have a good idea where they're going to be going with it. They're probably sending all their military people out to all these war zones and seeing what the direction the drone war is going, basically. Right, that's what they're all building. All car factories, there's going to be drones, and the drone places are going to turn into making machines, and then it begins.
Thank you, Prime Minister Stora, dear Jonas, and Chancellor, dear Friedrich. This is an incredibly important exercise for Canada. And I think where I'd like to start is to echo comments of my colleagues, is that what we begin with is the strength of our common values. We are like-minded. We hold basic values constantly dear. But we're recognizing at the same time the value of our strength. We're all investing heavily in our defense and security, and we all recognize that we are much stronger together. Stronger together when we cooperate in areas such as space, cooperate in defense, but also cooperate with other like-minded nations. And there's no better illustration than Operation Cold Response. Over 30,000 women and men, 14 nations, working together, learning together, integrating systems, preparing to defend our citizens. So it is incredibly important for Canada to be a participant in this with our special forces. We're learning a lot. I think hopefully we're passing on a few lessons. We'll take this forward. We will protect our own territories. We will protect the high north, the Arctic, and in doing so, we will protect NATO, we'll protect freedom, democracy, and human rights. Just a couple of words about our commitment to defense. A year ago, our new government was first sworn in, and within the first week, we went to our Arctic and made a commitment. We made a commitment to change fundamentally our defense strategy, to be present 365 days a year in land, sea, and air, in a territory that is 40% of our land mass and 75% of our coastline. I would add also a territory that shares a 3,000-kilometer border with the European Union. Part of that in defense and security and economic security. And then that is part of a bigger set of investments consistent with commitments we all made less than a year ago in
The Hague.
in The Hague. I was going to say in The Hague. I wanted to say Hamburg because you were here, Friedrich, but in The Hague. Made commitments there for Canada. Those commitments translate to $500 billion of additional spending on defense and security over the course of the next decade. C'est à peu près 500 milliards de dollars sur des dépenses sur la défense et la sécurité d'ici 2035. Au fond, c'est une question de partenariat et des questions des valeurs communes que nous partageons. So, fundamental learnings from this exercise, fundamental strength that comes from the partnership that we have. Thank you for hosting us. I look forward to moving forward together. And, of course, we all look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
And then we open up for questions. And the first questions come from the
I hope they're in English, all the questions.
So if you please go to the microphone down there.
There's the three of them.
Yes. Next
all
to
right.
the cameras,
Germany,
please.
Norway, and Canada. Yeah, I think it'll mostly be in English. Oh, we'll put it. Oh,
Hello,
he's over
hi.
here.
I can't see you anymore, but hopefully you can hear me. I'd like to pick up on something that Mr. Mertz said about the war in Iran. And being here with Russia as the sort of intended enemy, I'm wondering if you could share your thoughts about what the war in Iran and the easing of the oil sanctions against Russia, what will that have to say for the war in Ukraine? What will be the implications? So, thank you.
Well, let me start by saying that we are entering the 5th year of a full-scale aggression from Russia against Ukraine, and Ukraine has had to live with events beyond Ukraine taking attention away from this completely unacceptable situation they are in. So the first thing is that when there is dramatic things happening elsewhere, there is less attention on keeping pressure on Russia, supporting Ukraine's defense. The three countries standing here are consistent in supporting Ukraine, even if the focus may be somewhere else. In fact, we have from Norway and Germany, I think will be the major providers of support, and also from Canada to Ukraine's ongoing efforts. And it's our view, and I speak for Norway now, and I think we share that view, that there needs to be more pressure on Russia to stop this unacceptable war. And from my perspective, I think that there should be no pressure on the energy side taken off Russia. It needs to be consistent, and it needs to be felt from the Russian side so that they will come to the negotiation table, accept the ceasefire, and accept a just and durable peace. Well, I fully agree with what Prime Minister Sture just said. As you all know, we had a video conference with the G7 leaders on Wednesday, and 6 out of 7 were clearly the opinion that we should not release the sanctions against Russia. And we were a little bit surprised that we heard this morning that the American government decided differently. This is definitely not our view. We are sharing the 6 out of 7 that this should be not the case because Russia is benefiting from that. And we are seeing this into the right different direction. We should put more pressure on Russia to bring this terrible war to an end as soon as possible. And that's the reason why we are having a different view on this decision, which was obviously taken in D.C. last night.
Yes. I'll just reinforce that. Entirely agree. Canada's position is to maintain sanctions on Russia, maintain sanctions, including on the Shadow Fleet, which is moving this oil. There has been very tight cooperation between Russia and Iran at great cost to the people of Ukraine, and a great threat to peace and security in Europe. And this group, under the leadership of the two gentlemen to my right, and a broader coalition of the willing, has stood up to that. In providing the framework for security guarantees, stood up to that in terms of providing support and training and materiel to Ukraine. All of us have contributed considerably to the defense of Ukraine, stood up to it in terms of sanctions, which we stand by and will continue to do so.
The next question is from Catherine Tunney, CBC.
We're going to check. On va faire un petit changement. Ce sera Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Carney, d'abord, si vous pouviez répéter en français ce que vous venez de dire sur la position du Canada par rapport à la levée des sanctions américaines contre le pétrole russe. Et ensuite, si on pouvait vous entendre, can you answer the question? Will it be any G7 meeting discussing the American decision? And is any one of you has the intention to talk to Donald Trump about his decision, trying to maybe convince him to back up on it?
OK. Je vais commencer. En ce qui concerne les sanctions canadiennes contre la Russie, on va les garder. C'est clair, c'est simple. Et la situation demeure la même. C'est la faute de la Russie, cette guerre horrible en Ukraine, et c'est la position du Canada de soutenir l'Ukraine tout le temps. C'est pas le moment d'enlever la pression sur la Russie, surtout parce que la Russie et l'Iran sont des grands alliés. OK. Alors, au fond, j'espère que ça suffit. Et in terms of a G7 meeting, I'm sure there will be additional G7 meetings. The convening of those meetings is the responsibility of the presidency. We all have direct lines into the president, and we'll use them. There is value in having broader G7 discussions. I'll make a final point with the countries of the GCC, who have shown enormous restraint and heroism, I might add, in terms of their response to the ceaseless attacks by Iran on them, particularly on civilians and civilian infrastructure.
So, Chancellor, will you ask a meeting to President Macron about the American decision?
Well, we will have the opportunity to speak with each other over the weekend, and we will check what we can do. And I'm totally agreeing with what Mark Carney said about the sanctions, and this is our view, and this is shared by most of the G7 members, and we will figure out what we can do to keep them ongoing and to increase them instead of releasing them.
The next questions come from Mr. Rinke, Reuters.
I have a question to Prime Minister Carney. You just said that we are stronger together if we work together. So my question would be about submarines. Why does Canada not buy the offer Germany and Norway have made? Why are you still thinking about a South Korean offer? And a question to the Chancellor and Mr. Störe. What could you actually offer on addition of the offer which was made by the company to Canada to make it more appealing to accept it?
Well, let me answer this in a way that doesn't put pressure on my two colleagues, which is that all of our governments are making enormous additional investments in defense and security, rightly so. But all of us are doing so in a way that is responsible with taxpayer dollars, that look to ensure that those investments have the maximum effect in terms of providing defense and security to our citizens, and also build partnerships that have broader industrial and economic benefits for all of us together. What does that mean from a process perspective? Is you run a very clear, consistent, transparent, open, fair process. And the reason I'm not going to answer your question is we're towards the final stages of that. We have we're at the final stages of that, and we're blessed by having options, very much including the German-Norwegian option. Thank you.
Well, let me say that the offer from Norway and Germany was handed to Canada a few days ago, and I have every confidence that the Canadians will make a thorough evaluation of that offer. So I'll let the technical details lie. Just want to say that from our experience, investing together in these kind of very comprehensive capacities is more about than the capacities. It is also building industrial partnership and strategic and security policy partnership. So when Norway and Germany are integrating on submarines and on tanks, as we have seen here, it means also a very strong political integration between mature and trusted allies. So we get much closer in the way we share outlook on security environment, on security threats, and it's also kind of a cultural dimension of bringing us together, which provides Norway net security by those kind of common projects. So I think that's the whole idea. These are major investments, as Prime Minister Carney says. We are making decisions on spending a lot of money on this, which means that we can spend less money on other important issues in our societies. And in addition to investing in these capacities, when we do it together, we get an extra political dimension, which is very important for Norwegian security. Well, I fully agree with what my colleagues said. This is covering the entire picture of, the one hand, spending money for the right equipment, on the other hand, to standardize, to bring more standards into NATO, and to scale up the numbers. So this is, in my view, extremely important. And we're talking about, and as Mark Carney said, we are in the final stage of our talks, and I'm very much hoping that we can convince the Canadian partners to do that, what we want to see them to do.
The next question comes from TV2, Simen Grimstad Øksnes.
Don't do it, Carney! Don't do it!
Repeatedly emphasize that the United States is Norway's most important ally. Do the German Chancellor and the Canadian Prime Minister still believe that the US can be trusted when it comes to security in the north?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want me to elaborate on that? We have...
This is a funny, like they all laugh because they got a little equipment in the background. But America is about 140% of the security of the North. So that's why they laughed. They're like, we can't even really contribute. Like if we wanted to build an air base up in the Arctic, it would take years. The military, I don't even know if he could do it. I don't think we have the equipment. But the American military could. They could drop bulldozers from the air. And they have done this. Land bulldozers from the air. And parachute down and start bulldozing to get the planes to build a port. You know what I mean? So when you're like, do you trust the Americans? You're like, the Americans are the Arctic security, and we are just getting on board. Hopefully, we'll see where this spending goes. And remember, this is the best deal about Canadians. So not build drones for Iran. Yeah, Iran's not having. They're having their factories. They're having a fire sale in all of the factories in Iran for their drones. Iranian drones are no longer. But the best thing about this Canadian deal we have with all of this extra spending. Okay, you remember they're spending 2% of GDP. Now we're going to spend 5%, whatever, 3%. But anyway, it's like, I don't know, $100, $200 billion of all of the EU countries. Canada, Carney somehow got us in there. Carney got Canada in there. So all the EU spending, they can buy from Canadian companies. We got in there. Canadian companies can bid on it. No one outside. American companies can't bid on most of it. But when it comes to like weapons, I digress. I think no, that's incorrect. Of course, American companies, American military will be a part of the spending. But a lot of the contracts, and with Canada, we got in there. I don't know about the American part, so I shouldn't have said that. But Canada, we got in there. A lot of other countries didn't. So all of those bids, $200 billion of spending and all this of new equipment and everything needs to be bought, like safety belts and tracks and cold climate windshields. All of these things need to be purchased along with this. So with Canadian companies being allowed to be integrated into that buy has just given us, our country, a big boon. Forget about the cars. Our country just got a big boon. If the companies are aware of it and they can streamline to make, to make use of this that we got in there. That's where the government needs to come in. They need to get a defense desk for businesses to show them, okay, here's the opportunities of the European government spending. So, you know what I mean? And you figure out where you lie. But, this is our research of the spending of governments, right? You know what I mean? It's harder. It would be easier for a government to get all of that data into a good file and hand it to all the companies individually than each individual company to get that information upon their own, right? This is what you have government for, to do these things. And then we get to bid on contracts, and that'd be great. This could go that not one bid of any Canadian company happens if it isn't politically managed right. This is the big thing that why I love politics and I'm so much into it is people think it doesn't matter. It matters huge, and the difference is like lifting a finger difference. Sometimes it's so small, such a minor thing. One press conference, one extra worker employee for a thing, and the whole thing can shift. No, it usually takes a lot more than that. But anyway.
Our defense of the North is integrated. I'll give an example through NORAD, which is, for my entire lifetime, has been the integrated listening post air defense system in the Canadian North and High Arctic, fundamentally integrated with the United States. So we have that level of trust for that system. But I will say at the same time, and this was a huge element of what we announced yesterday, is that we are, as Canada, are taking control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic, more control and responsibility for defense of our Arctic. We will do that by very large investments, some of which we announced yesterday, and we will do that in partnership with our closest allies, very much including Norway and Germany, and if I may broaden Norway to include the Nordic countries and the Baltic countries to some degree, because there's an integration of the Nordic-Baltic 8 through NATO. So we're broadening out those partnerships. That makes us stronger, as does taking more of the responsibility ourselves. Thank you.
Can I add one dimension to this? And I think one reason why we can say that we trust is that being present in cooperation with the United States in the North is also homeland security for the United States. Good. This is about protecting Norway, but by protecting Norway, keeping low tensions, avoiding conflict here, it is net positive for the security of the United States. We believe that is self-interest. So yes.
But when U.S. eases the sanctions on Russia, doesn't that create a different picture?
We have made it clear that we disagree with that decision, and disagreements appear among countries. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next question is from Valérie Ganache, Radio Canada.
Sorry, we did a little switch. It's Catherine Tunney from CBC. My question is for all three of you. As you know, Trump has ordered a 301 investigation into major economies, including your own, alleging unfair labor practices. My question is, do you think that is valid? And Prime Minister Carney, if you'll allow me to double barrel a question in the rain, but many Canadians are probably looking at that latest job report with some worry, some 84,000 jobs lost, the worst in years. What does that say about your handle of things?
Okay, well, maybe I'll start, so I'll get rid of the both elements of it. Look, if you look at the performance of the labor market over the course of the last 6 months, we've created over 80,000 jobs net over the last 6 months. The United States has created 6,000 jobs. Okay, the United States, 11 times the size of our economy. Wages are growing at 4.2%, fastest wage growth in years. Unemployment, 6.7%, is lower than the peak when I came into office a year ago. There's no question, though, because it goes to the first part of your question. Now I'll move to that, which is that given the scale of the trade actions, the uncertainty that is associated as well as with the trade actions by the United States, that is causing big adjustments in the Canadian economy, and that's why we're making major investments across a whole range of areas. I won't go through them all. I think you're probably familiar with them. In terms of the U.S. 301 actions announced today against 60 countries, I guess the first thing I'd say is I welcome the fact that the United States cares about labor practices in other countries. The allegation is not labor practices in our countries. It's imports from countries who would be using forced labor or slave labor. Canada has a comprehensive legal framework around that, as is the case to my right, and we take it very seriously, and we stand by our adherence to Canadian law. Yes, there are provisions in USMCA related to labor standards, but there are stronger provisions in Canadian law against forced labor, and we expect those to be followed. And when they're not, they are prosecuted. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. The last question today is Mrs. Sievert from Table Media.
Thank you. Eine Frage an den Bundeskanzler. Sie haben den Iran eben erwähnt. Würden Sie es unterstützen, dass die Europäer oder die Deutschen mit den Iranern in direkten Kontakt